I reckon if like that multiplayer mode with Village had actually come out with launch, I probably would have been playing it.
Yeah,
Or reverse.
Yeah.
yeah.
I don't know. It's kind of a good sign that they've delayed it. Maybe it means they're actually going to put some more effort into
I think they're also going to put in like Lazy D and like
Yeah.
Resident Evil Chris just because they're popular. That's
Yeah, they'd get a load of people if they put Dimitrescu do it, because they'd just all be like, "Oh yeah, I want to go play as Big Titty Lady." It was. I mean, we've started. I'm recording.
Oh yeah.
So hello, anyone who's decided to watch this. This is me and Harrison and Sam, and we're going to discuss Resident Evil Village following me and Harry's sort of retrospective discussion last week. We've all played the game, some more than others, but we've all finished the campaign at least once. But yeah, so with our reverse, I think I genuinely think like if they put like Dimitrescu and like Chris and stuff in it, more people would flock towards it. And also probably like the amount of like negative feedback they had from that beta, they're probably
just balancing it and adding Lady Dimitrescu.
Yeah,
a bit more rich.
I still think though that like if they just made the Mercenaries mode multiplayer, they'd also get more people on board with that. That'd be fun. Do like multiplayer maps on Mercenaries.
Yeah.
The beta was so trash.
It was really bad. We played like 3 games and we were all just like, yeah, I'm done with this. Immediately deleted it.
Just one game mode, one map.
Yeah, that's all you need.
Nothing to do.
That's all you need. What was I going to say? I think I was watching a review and someone was... Part of what I want to discuss today as well is about some people's reactions to the game, like other reviewers and stuff. And whilst I don't normally care about what other people say, I feel like there's a weird narrative about this game that some of like the bigger, higher profile, like independent reviewers have been putting across. And weirdly enough, I think it's because people who haven't played, I was going to say Metal Gear, a lot of Resident Evil games before, a lot of them were saying like it's really disappointing that they did all the marketing and then there's this big character that's only in it for a little bit of the game and then suddenly it's other characters who just aren't as interesting or as well written. I was like, if you know Resident Evil, you could tell from the opening that Dimitrescu was only going to be in it for a little bit.
Yeah, and you just know she's going to turn into like this giant monster.
Exactly.
That was the first time you see it. That's what you know.
That you knew that from the outset, but some people who obviously aren't that into Resident Evil played it and they were like, "This is shit," and the other characters aren't written as well. And I'll be honest, I think Heisenberg's my favorite actual like.
Heisenberg's great. He's so much fun.
He's so fucking cool, and he has like the best line in the game during his boss fight. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Punching one.
Yeah. He's like that boulder punching idiot or asshole or something. Yeah. I'm like, that's fucking amazing.
I love that bit.
Fellas, I'm going to start with Sam because I think I know where me and Harry stand. Sam, what did you think of Resident Evil Village?
I liked it a lot. I liked it. It's almost like a contrast to 7, where the combat is a lot more refined and you can just like blast through loads of stuff and the combat's so fun.
And it feels good with the triggers as well. Like I was doing a Magnum playthrough and it's really interesting because you can feel when the next shot is ready to be fired. Like you can feel it in the controller, like the trigger lock's ready for you to pull it again to then, fire another Magnum shot. Just shit like that is so...
Yeah, and the bit where you're playing as Chris and you have the machine guns and stuff and it's just like firing back on your finger and it's like pop.
Yeah, what other Resident Evil games have you played, Sam?
2 and 7, and then a bit of like a 5 or 6 when Dawn with the Chainsaw Guy, when I went around yours in like year 7.
That's 5.
Yeah.
5, yeah. But yeah, that's about it. So.
Yeah, so Harry, which Resident Evil games have you played?
I've played Resident Evil 0, 1, Remake, 2, Remake, 3, Remake, 4, 5, 6, 7,
Code Veronica.
Survivor, Code Veronica, and now Village. I played like 12 or 13.
And Harry, what did you think of Resident Evil Village?
I really, really liked it. I think it's great. I've played it 4 times now. Completion. Yeah, I think it's great. I think I do prefer it a bit to 7. I find it a bit more fun and like immediately engaging than 7. I find it more replayable than 7, and I think the replayability of Resident Evil is also like quite a big thing for me in my enjoyment of the game.
Definitely.
And I think the game does replayability a bit better than 7. And also, like, it's just such a ridiculous, like, fun roller coaster of a game where, like, so much crap is happening and so much shit is happening, like, at all times, and you keep getting, like, these powerful weapons and, like, insane stuff's happening. It's just so much fun from beginning to end in, like, every way. I love it.
I have played all of the mainline Resident Evil games, including Code Veronica in that. I adore this game.
Yeah.
I have also finished it 4 times. And as of 1 hour ago, I have the platinum.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. It's not easy. I mean, all the stuff to do with the campaign is pretty easy. It's the mercenary shit, because there's no ways to cheat that. There's no way you can exploit any of that. It's just, you got to be good at it. I mean, I'm just going to sideline slightly onto the mercenary stuff because I haven't spoken to you about it. But like, I think what happens is when you get to the like second round, like the harder difficulty versions of the mercenaries maps, it takes less points to get S ranks and up, but it's harder to actually just get through it in the first place. So like, on the final one, so on the hard version of Mad Village, I didn't even finish it. I got to the 3rd part out of 5, and I ran out of time, and I got an SS.
Okay.
So it's like it's more about just like actually being able to survive and get through, like build up a few combos. But I think those first 4 are all about just like getting as far a combos as you can. It's great. But as someone who considers Resident Evil 7 to be like one of my favorite games of all time, I was so pleased at how much of a sequel this game is.
Yeah. It's very much intertwined.
It's so much a second act to 7. And it was a love letter to 7 and 4. And I'm just like, oh my fucking God, this is amazing. There's such a great sense of progression as well the whole way through. And it's also like, it's basically like an open world Resident Evil game. Like on a small scale, there is an open world level of exploration and stuff. And I think there was a moment where, when you get the crank after Moreau, and then you go back and you like, there's a boat and you can go down and up the river.
It's a drawbridge, yeah.
Yeah, and you can go down the river and you find like Chris's like laptop and shit, and it's like the Mega Mycete, and like there's a shotgun down there. And I remember at that point I was like, I love this game.
It's so much fun just finding all like the hidden shit around the corners and finding like all those old treasure marks and just figuring out what each one is. But
even that for some reason it was that area specifically, because there wasn't a treasure mark or anything. It was just you had to be curious enough to go, I'm going to take this boat down that way instead. And I did it, and I was just like, I love this, because it's Resident Evil exploration sort of blown out to a different proportion, like to a whole game. The only criticism I have in terms of exploration stuff is I wish you could go back to the areas afterwards.
Yeah, because you can't do that because it's still like that's because there's some treasures that you just can't get after you killed the boss. Or,
there's lots of treasures that you can like combine to make more valuable treasures. Yeah. There were a few things I was holding on the whole game, and I was like, well, where is this other half of it? And it was something I missed in like the first castle or something. And that is the only thing, because I don't see a reason why they couldn't have just let you go back into the castle. Specifically, the castle is the main place, because I think there's...
because there's that drawbridge which is up for like no reason.
Yeah,
they could just lowered that. But...
You could easily go back in and just repopulate it with like enemies and stuff. Just like it would keep it, just have a reason to go back into it. But I think it's sort of just a way to cut corners, and that was something I missed about the game in 7, was because there is stuff in 7 where, that whole first 3 areas, they're all intertwined, and you'll get items that you can then go, I'm going to run back to the house because I know I can get like a antique shotgun or something from the attic and shit. Like, but otherwise, I think Village is sort of, my God, it's such a great Resident Evil game.
It's so much fun. It's so Resident Evil.
And here's what I was saying about a lot of the reviews, saying that it's a fun game, but it's just not very good as a Resident Evil game, or it doesn't tie in well to the overarching like lore of Resident Evil. And I was like, what do you want from Resident Evil? Like, all you need it to be is a really solid. Do you know how rare it is to get really polished survival horror games?
Yeah,
and we get this, and it's like, oh, it's not that great.
Yeah, because I don't really think of Village as a survival horror game.
No, it's an action.
Yeah, it's action horror because it's way more like 4 than it is 7. I think.
Yeah, and I don't think I was ever low on ammo the entire game.
No. Me.
And
I found standard a bit too easy.
Yeah,
well.
me too. I think hardcore is probably just about right. I think village
Yeah.
is a bit too tough first time through, but
I went through on standard first time. It's just like if you struggle, you can just run past enemies with no problem.
Yeah.
Whereas in 7, if you try to run past, it at least like hurt you a lot. But in 7, you can run.
Yeah, and I found as well,
run.
like when I did a knife only playthrough, you can like the biggest like the stronghold, which is like the biggest arena of the game, you can just run through it.
Yeah.
You can just run straight to the end if you're trying to speed run. Which isn't a problem because it's great that there's that like you can have that choice or you can decide to engage in the combat. But I just thought I do like challenge in Resident Evil.
Yeah.
But yeah, there were some things that even were a little bit easier than 4. I didn't find the combat too challenging at any point. I only died like a handful of points on the first playthrough, and also I don't think I ever ran out of inventory space.
No. Yeah, because I was going to say this because I put this down in my notes, but I don't think. No, that's because they brought back the inventory from 4.
Yeah.
So like the system where like, but I don't think there was really any point to it because you don't ever have to manage everything around.
No.
Because I went through like the whole game and I got that challenge where it's like play the where it's like do a run through without moving items around in the inventory without even thinking about it because it's just completely not necessary.
Yeah.
And I found
it's not at all.
Yeah, and I just found like even in 4, like there was like way more.
Yeah.
And I felt like I had like less ammo in 4.
The only time I ever had to move stuff around was when I'd already like nearly platinum the game and I had loads of extra like infinite ammo weapons and like the rocket pistol and shit that I wanted to try out. That was the only time I had to move stuff around, which was hardly like, an effort.
Yeah.
So let's just sort of go through the game a little bit. So initially, like, it opens up with this house sequence with Ethan and Mia, and Ethan's voice actor is what he is, and a lot of people criticize it as being like one of the worst voice actor performances in games and all this other stuff. And I'm just like, bro, it's Resident Evil, like,
yeah, that's fine.
But I also really like Ethan as a character in like a weird way. Yeah. I think that he is very much meant to be like an avatar for the player. Like he's there just to give you like a reason to play. But I also always like how in this game and in 7, he always flips from being scared to being like, fuck you, I'm gonna, when you do that fight with Uras in the stronghold, the massive like wolf dude.
Big Santa.
Yeah. When you finish it, he screams at him, he goes, eat shit. And you're just like, all right. So it opens up with this sequence in the house, which I quite enjoyed. I think
it's really nice just looking around everything.
Yeah,
it's it all in.
And I explored the whole thing first playthrough. Looked at all of the like newspaper articles and stuff. There's some books on the shelf which are like references to things in the series.
Yeah, there's a Kendo shop.
Yeah.
Book, yeah.
And I thought all of that was really interesting, and I thought it was a really good way of like bridging the gap between 7 and 8. And it was at that point where I was like, maybe this is going to have more to do with 7 than I initially thought, because they've got the Baker report, and also there's stuff about how it was like covered up and things. And then I remembered in like the trailers, there's loads of umbrella symbols around the village and shit. I was like, how is this all gonna tie together? And then obviously you get that really crazy moment that we saw in like the first ever trailer, but it's that supposedly Mia gets blown to fucking bits right then and there. And Chris just comes in looking like a fucking unit. Finishes her off
like a bulky Chris.
And what I really liked about the whole opening sequence was it puts you in this place again that 7 managed to do, where you are kind of lost. You're like, what is happening? You don't instantly go, this is a Resident Evil game, I know how this pans out, I know what this is all going to mean and all this other stuff. You just think, what is happening? How does this fit in? How does this work? Chris is killing my wife, like. Sam, what did you think of the opening?
It was like the same as 7, where it's just like a chill way just to introduce you into the game. And so it's like bridging out of the house, and then like when you go and meet up with the first villagers, it's sort of like same pattern, I guess, as 7, where like obviously in 7 you go and find Mia and you just explore a little bit, but then this one you find Elena and you explore a little bit and you introduce them to combat and whatever. So it's the same sort of introduction, like same pattern. But yeah,
and
it
it
still
does,
works.
and it does a sort of similar intro to what Resi 4 did as well, where it teaches you very early on that you're going to have to face big amounts of enemies, like large groups of enemies.
That village section is so good because you just like thrown like straight into it, and you have like 10 different wolf guys on you
Yeah.
at the same time. I love that stuff.
And you've just got to like barricade through, like decide what you're going to do, keep moving. I think that's when the game really shines, is when you feel like you're on the back foot, but also you're equipped enough to be able to deal with stuff. Yeah, I think the whole opening section of the game is the strongest. Well, I'm not going to say one of the strongest points. I think the whole game is pretty fucking strong. And lots of Resident Evil games tend to have like a lull at some point in it. They tend to have like a downward dip. But I'll be honest, because of the way the game's paced and how it all like flows together, and you're constantly moving from objective to objective, and then suddenly it's over. I'd never got that moment of, oh, we're on a tanker now, you know.
Yeah, like I suppose like maybe a little bit in the factory, but like not majorly.
Yeah,
and
the
I still quite enjoy the factory bit.
Yeah,
quite
me
a lot.
too. And I think the factory bit definitely feels like the longest like stretch of the game. But I think they keep it interesting enough, and like there's a load of good like files and like lore building and stuff going on in that building. And also going back to this idea of like linear progression, like I think it's going to go overlooked by some people, but I think the progression in this game is like stellar.
Yeah.
With weapons and everything, like it's definitely borrowing heavily from 4.
Yeah.
And you know, you got the Duke this time, who's the merchant, and I think he's awesome, man.
Yeah.
He's so fucking weird. He's great. He's got like the biggest belly in the world. You can see his toes are like really fucking weird.
I just cooking like fine dishes in the back.
Yeah, he's cooking like amazing food for you. And it was that moment in the factory when you go and he's got loads of new guns there. He gets the Scorpion type thing, the new shotgun and everything. And I was looking at the stats of it, because normally when you're getting a fast fire rate gun, it does less damage or something. Yeah. And what I loved, and it sounds silly, but I loved the fact that it was just, no, this is the straight up next upgrade. Yeah. And you feel such a power arc of like, oh my god, this is amazing. And also the guns feel so good.
They're very fun to shoot, especially like the shotguns, and also the V61 custom pistol.
Yeah,
because you can basically turn it into like an automatic like close range shotgun.
It's so
much fun to just
it's so powerful. And also, Sam, you probably got the same feeling with the dual sense as well, with the triggers, like because the shooting in this 1 and 7 is a lot about precision. You really sort of you sort of spend your whole time like resting on that like point of the trigger, and then you just sort of waiting for the click of it each time.
Yeah, like it would just be like sometimes like even though you never run low on ammo, it's just like if there's just like a few enemies, you can like click it and then go nah, I'm just wrong.
But it's I there was something about that level of linear progression and constantly feeling like you're getting more powerful the whole way through, and still feeling like it's a reasonable level of difficulty. I was very much on board with that. So after the initial opening of the game, we move into Castle Dimitrescu, which is beautiful.
It's a lovely looking place.
I don't know how it looks and performs on PS4, Harry.
It's great. It's great.
Yeah,
it's very nice for him.
But on PS5, it's running with ray tracing at a pretty consistent 60, to be honest. It drops at like some points when it's more intense, but like if you keep the ray tracing on, there are frame drops, but it looks insane.
Yeah.
Like you can see the individual like wood grain reflection of the light from the chandeliers and stuff. And I was just sort of constantly like, this looks like real life. And when you're not aiming or anything and the HUD's sort of gone, you're just like, what the fuck? This is insane. And it's kind of how I remember 7 being. But when I played 7 recently, you can see there's like, it's not photorealistic. It's kind of, it was great for its time, but this is just like a massive step up in so many ways. Sam, what did you think of the visuals in this section of the game, especially?
Well, in that section, it's just like all the like gold strips along all the walls, and like how everything was reflecting off it. Like, that was just great. And it's also like as when you're close to enemies and you shoot them, like you just get blood on your gun. It's like that, and then even that like reflects. It's just like, how do you get that?
And I think one of the things I loved about this game, if you look back at like original Resi and the RPD and like the Spencer Mansion and stuff, Castle Dimitrescu felt like a mini Spencer Mansion. Like it felt like it was tying in on itself, and it had all these different
got, like, the basement, and it's got
exactly.
And it's got like the library, and it's got like a bunch of like small little kitchen areas and stuff.
It's got all these branching areas that tie back into each other, and you are constantly rewarded for deciding to go the path, less tread. You can find treasures, and you can find loads of other shit just hanging around, lots of documents and stuff.
Yeah, I do kind of wish, like, although like Castle Dimitrescu and the factory are quite fun levels, I do wish there was like one more like it, because that's because House Benevito and also the Morale section, like, they're good, but they're also like very linear.
Yeah, they are incredibly linear. And I think that's one of the things is like the game has a really good sense of exploration with the like village section.
Yeah, I suppose that makes sense.
But the actual game is very linear. Because there's that point after you kill Lady D, you go back and you get given the key. And I thought, I can decide which one I want to pursue next.
Yeah, that's what I thought as well.
Yeah, and I thought that was really cool. But it's actually just a very linear way of like progressing through it, which is a shame because I think for what the bosses are, maybe despite Heisenberg, you could have at least picked one of the. I don't think it would have changed the narrative that much. But yeah, obviously that's the first major part of the game. You have these smaller boss fights with each of her daughters.
Those are all so fun.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's because like the first time you kill one of the daughters, you're like, oh shit, I killed one of them. This is great.
Because you're constantly on the back foot again, and that's what's great about this game in 7 as well. Is it always starts you off in a place of there is no way you're going to do this, and somehow you manage to overcome it. And once you find that weakness, and then you run into a room and they appear, and you're like, right, where's the cold crack in the wall that I can like blow up and beat this shit out of her with. Yeah, and then suddenly you're just stabbing Lady Dimitrescu in the side with a knife, and then boom, she's a massive dragon-looking thing.
That's a fun boss fight because she's like destroying the tower around you.
Yeah, they do that. They do that a few times in the game where the boss, like, you have to kind of guide the boss almost to like create more room for yourself. They do it again with the Stern boss fight towards the end, where the guy with the giant propeller is just sort of you want to sort of make him crash through the wall so you have more room to maneuver. But it's a pretty standard Resi boss fight, but it is good. Yeah. It's a great feeling to overcome that initial fight, and you're suddenly like, wow, I've made progress. And so at this point you go back to the Duke, and he tells you that you're holding your daughter's like decapitated head in your hands.
Yeah, because when I found out, like, I literally had my hand over my mouth, like I was so invested in the story. It really got me, and I was like, Jesus Christ!
I was like, that's fucking grim. Yeah. I wasn't expecting that, and I was like, that's pretty grim. Obviously the baby, Rose as a baby does come back, but it was just, it was like, fucking hell, that's pretty grim. It's so after this point you start heading towards House Benevito. House Benevito. Which is a cool segment of the game. And it lends itself to like one of my points about the entire game is that I don't quite agree with what you were saying about replayability. I think that it's very fun on subsequent playthroughs, but nothing is ever going to beat that initial first playthrough. Of course, yeah. But I think this section in particular is almost frustrating on subsequent playthroughs.
I don't find it too annoying because you can kind of like, because it's not too long if you know exactly what you're doing. And
you can speed through it, but I think you could have easily got around that feeling if you did something like every time you subsequently play through it like that, there is a way to quickly just kill through and get over with it, because I don't think it's ever going to have the same effect. That giant baby and everything doesn't quite have...
creeps me out.
It's still creepy. And that first time through, I was fucking shitting myself. And because you're constantly waiting for something bad to happen.
Yeah. And it's that umbilical cord on the floor.
Yeah. It's really, really good atmosphere building. And it was on my first playthrough, it was like one of my favorite parts of the entire game. And I think it feels very much more, PC or like puzzle escape roomy kind of thing than it does Resident Evil in that point, which is not a problem at all. But I do think on like every playthrough I've done since, I'm like, oh god, I've got to do this bit again. It's the only bit of the game that I dread doing on subsequent playthroughs. It doesn't take too long, but I'm just like, I wish there was a way that it didn't have to, or you know, even if on Village of Shadows the puzzle was different, it was as simple as the puzzle was in different locations, or you had to do another aspect to it, or it was like another more complicated part of it. I think that would have been kept it more interesting. Yeah, Sam, what did you think of this section of the game with the giant baby?
I don't want to say I hated it, but like I hated it in like the good way, because like I hate babies crying.
And you're getting chased by a giant fucking baby.
Yeah.
Yeah, I went. It's that first moment where you go back around the corner and you just see it like poke its head through.
Like, what the fuck is that? And you're like, and I remember because my housemate like opened the door like around the same time after I first saw it, like jumped.
It's fucking creepy. Yeah, that whole section is really creepy, and I think they sort of lost the plot a bit with what that boss fight is meant to be with that doll. You kind of just chase it around 3 times, and it's like, I think you could have done something more interesting there, like actual combat based.
Well, sure, it's like replayability, because like you could just have it in like different locations around the house.
Yeah,
like make the house a bit more open.
And I think it does occasionally, but it does tend to be the same 3 locations.
Because originally I saw like a yellow string on the floor, and I was like, oh, so I just got to, is that where I follow it to get it? Because like the first room, the string points to it, but then after that, it just doesn't do anything. You just have to look. Like
there's small, subtle like visual cues, but it's kind of just like there's no skill or like intuition involved in it.
Yeah.
I think I'd be surprised if anyone actually died in that section, like on their first playthrough.
I mean, I was unsure what was that. Like, I saw like the dog shaking and stuff. I'm sure like the dogs probably eventually like, jump at you if you took too long, but I'm not really sure what like the risk was.
Yeah. Yeah, I think basically if you leave it for too long, they all come alive and start stabbing you to death. But yeah, so that section is good, and I do actually think this part of the game has like some of the best exploration stuff, because when you go back through it gives you a different route to go, and you have access to that gardener's house, and you find out a little bit more about the story there, and then you can also come back later with the grave slab.
Yeah.
And this was one of the moments where I was like, oh my god, this is amazing, because you come back and it's basically a boss fight.
Yeah, it's just like a little mini boss.
Yeah, but it took all of my resources to kill him. Yeah, and but I was just impressed. I was like, I just came back for a little treasure, and now I got a whole boss fight and everything. And that happens as well when you go back to get like Louisa's like heirloom or whatever, and there's like one of those giant ancient beast things.
Yeah. Also on the way to the stronghold, where like if you go left into that like cannibal's house, like that's optional, I think.
Yeah.
Like,
that is all completely optional. Yeah.
Yeah, like because that cannibal, like I kept him like running upstairs, like thinking, oh, he can't get me, and then he would just jump. It's like, oh.
And I think it sort of lends itself to what you were kind of saying about linearity, Harry, because I feel like after the first boss, so after Lady D's boss fight, the game does sort of become like a set piece thing for like the next 2 areas.
Yeah.
Because the second part is very much psychological horror, Silent Hill type disturbing shit, but it is like a set piece. There's no real risk if you know how to navigate it. And then it happens again with the third area with Moreau, because you are kind of just running through like an explosion set piece, you know?
Yeah, because that bit kind of reminds me of Killer Croc.
Right, okay. Yeah.
And I like Killer Croc, but it's not very hard.
No, you just have to navigate it. I do kind of like his design as a character. I think he's cool. Fucking gross.
Yeah.
And I was looking at the concept art notes, and all of that stuff on his back is actually his brain. That's like due to the like mold and everything, it's like spread throughout his entirety of his back. It's just nasty. I don't think his boss fight is particularly inventive, but it is just a fun, you're shooting at something over and over again, dodge some acid kind of thing. It's a cool section of the game, but it is over very quickly.
Yeah. It took like 10 minutes when I was running through it like the other day.
And it is like a set piece area. There's not a great deal of anything, to do with like. I think one of the things about good Resident Evil games is if you know what you're doing and you have the right weapons and stuff, you should be able to circumvent shit. You should be able to like blast through stuff as quick as possible. And you can't really do that if it's doing these sort of set piece moments and things. I like his character design a lot, and I think he's actually genuinely gross. But it wasn't my favorite area of the game.
No.
Yeah, I'd say like out of the 4, like in terms of just everything about it, like it was the weakest like boss.
Yeah.
Because Heisenberg was
He's definitely the least memorable, I think.
Yeah. Because I haven't done it multiple times, I'm sure like the Benevito one would just go down, like, or Benevento, whatever you call it. Like, I'm sure that just replayability on that is not great, but just the atmosphere the first time playing it was like, I'd say it's like the second like best boss with stuff, like the atmosphere was building and stuff. Because like I was terrified when the baby came in. It was like 9, 10 o'clock at night. It was dark, and I was just like, oh.
I'm trusting that both of you played this with headphones.
I did.
Yeah. Yes.
I didn't. I just played on my TV. It's still creepy though.
The audio work in this game is like phenomenal. It was in 7 as well, but in this one especially, like I feel like they just stepped it up, especially in that second area. It's just such a unnerving scenario.
It's just every Resident Evil game you just play through, there's just sounds happening. It's just like, is the next corner going to be a jump scare or something? So it's just constantly there, because you just hear like, you go to like a kitchen area and there'll just be like a pan falls over. And like, oh. And like, especially in the village sections where like stuff will just fall apart, but it's just because the village is falling apart, not because there's a monster there. So it's just constantly building that atmosphere. It's great.
Oh yeah, it's also like in the village, like probably it's probably one of the creepiest things. It's just like how the lichens. It's just how the lichens, they just like sit on cars, and they just sit like, you can see them like straight ahead. They just sit there.
They're just waiting for you until you decide to snipe one of them. But
yeah, because sometimes you can just walk past them, even like under them if they're like sat on like a like covering or something. Like, you can just walk under and they won't do anything, and then you just like go a few meters the other way, and then you suddenly just like hear them jumping. Like when you think that, oh, they haven't jumped me yet. It's always just building that atmosphere there.
So after the third section of the game, you are pushed towards Heisenberg, who, I think is my favorite of the 4 main villains.
I think he's got like the most. I think he's got the most fun boss fight, or the most like, or the most.
We'll get to the boss fight.
Yeah.
So you go through the stronghold, which I think is probably the most action-heavy part of the entire game, because you're just in constant firefights over and over and over again, and it's sort of capped off with that one-on-one fight with the giant wolf dude. So then you finally get the last flask. You head back over to the umbrella-looking chalice thing, and you head down into the factory, and it's massive.
It's a very big level.
It's a very big area. What did you guys? Obviously, you have the narrative bit here where Heisenberg is trying to get you on side with him, and then you sort of see that guy with the giant propeller for a face as well. It's quite a nice intro to the entire area. But what did you guys initially think of this sort of factory area?
Yeah, because the factory is like a lot of fun to explore, and there's like so many ways you just like go back. Because it's also like because there's a lot of ways you can go back and find new areas, and I feel like visually it's the least interesting area because I think Village works best when it's got the Castle Dimitrescu kind of like creepy gothic stuff, and also the House Benevito stuff. And I feel like just having like this kind of steampunky look isn't that interesting, but it's a lot of fun to explore, and it's a really fun little gameplay environment, and it's also like moving between the 3 floors, and there's quite a lot of little fun little there's quite a lot of like fun little set pieces, and there's lots of fun little secrets. It's a nice little place, but it's a little boring visually in my opinion.
No, I completely agree, and I saw one review where they said that the game does such a good job of setting up this like this like juxtaposition of like this gothic horror combined with these like firearms and like Ethan as a character and all the rest of it, and it kind of abandons that by having the factory level. But I don't not enjoy it. I think it's one of the parts of the game that I don't dread it at all when I do replays.
Yeah.
And I'm quite fond of the boss fight towards the end as well. I think we're talking about the Stern boss fight to start off with, I think is the guy's name, but it's the giant propeller dude. I think it's visually it's kind of a disturbing design, and it reminds me because I don't know if you found the same document as me, but it says that the guy like chopped off his own arms. His arms got in the way, so he doesn't actually have arms. He's just a fucking dude with a propeller for a head.
It's all he's got.
Yeah.
Kind of feel bad for the guy.
I mean, he didn't have a good time.
No.
But it culminates with you getting kicked back down to the bottom levels, and you find Chris again.
Yeah.
And this is sort of where they give you like the good exposition dump for the whole game, and you kind of finally figure out what's sort of going on, and you didn't actually kill Mia and all this other stuff.
Around the whole time, all that stuff.
Yeah. But then, go on, Sam.
That was like something I kind of predicted. Like, it was one of the only things about the narrative where I was like, okay, like, Mia like is definitely not dead, and like there's definitely something to do with like Miranda in there. Like, I mean, I didn't think it's Mia was like Miranda the whole time, like even in the house. But I didn't think that. But it's just like I'm still. Yeah, Mia's definitely alive. I
thought what it was going to be, because there's like a part in the House Benevito bit where you're like hearing a voice call from her, and she's saying like, I had to do it for us, kind of thing. And I thought it was going to be some weird thing where she like, I don't know, was like willing to submit to some mold thing. I don't know. I thought it was going to be some like weird choice of, is George trying to join in? George is trying to join the chat. I'm going to let him do it.
Oh, God. Crash the whole thing.
What's going on, guys?
Hey, George, have you played Resident Evil Village?
You suck my dick?
Okay.
I played it. I heard it's good. I'm brushing my teeth. I just woke up.
Thank you for your input. I'm going to kick
Your
you
hair looks
now.
really nice. Your hair looks really nice today, sir.
Yeah, I just saw you put this in the chat, and I was like, what's going on?
See you soon, George.
Why am I allowed not? Why am I not
Because
allowed
we're
to
having
do
an
it?
in-depth review discussion, and you're being a dickhead.
Oh, it's just like a podcast thing.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. I'm so sorry. Oh, yeah, I thought you were just hanging out. Oh, shit. Okay. Have fun, guys.
Bye. I knew that was exactly what it was going to be as well.
He's just woken up. He's definitely hungover.
So anyway, we get on to one of my favourite parts of the first playthrough, which is the Heisenberg boss fight.
Yeah.
You get given this massive tank, and before you even start to go up, I've messed around with the controls a little bit. And on the PS5, you've got like a really good recoil on the right trigger for the machine gun and all the rest of it. And I just paused it and I burst out laughing. But I tried the controls and I burst out laughing because it was like pure joy of like, oh my God, I get to go and use this thing against a boss now.
Yeah, because I messaged you saying like I just got to a bit that, because I messaged you saying I just got to a bit that I know you're going to love.
Yeah.
Like an hour before.
And I did, and I loved it. And then you go into the fight. And on standard and hardcore, this fight is pretty great. I think it's a bit bullshit on Village, but it's a really fun fight where you're just focusing on hitting weak points and like maneuvering about. And you have that amazing epic moment where like you're sucked back into the whirlwind and you get back into the fucking tank. And
He lands back on it.
He's like, your funeral, and fucking blows him up. And I was like, this is fucking amazing.
Yeah, I love it. I love it so much.
Dad, what did you think of the boss fight?
Would have liked it to be longer, just for my taste. Just because I managed to, I just powered through it because like there's no reload on the machine gun, you just fire.
Yeah.
And like So it was just all the time, just constantly machine gun every now and then, just blasting with the cannon. But yeah, it feels so great, like the
That's actually a good.
recoil on it. And
I think
stuff.
that's actually a good point. I think because obviously that whole fight, you're kind of doing the same thing over and over and over again. I think it would have been interesting if some of the bosses had like multiple phases.
Yeah.
Because none of them do, apart from maybe Miranda.
Miranda does.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I think there could have been a ways, like especially when you're dealing with mutations. It was like if the first phase of Lady Dimitrescu was her like in human form, and then it was like her more like beastie, and then suddenly it was like that dragon thing at the end. I think that could have made it feel a bit more like, I don't know, a bit. You could feel a bit more invested in the fights you're doing.
It could have given it a bit more scale. Yeah.
And I think especially with Heisenberg's fight, there's if his thing is that he can manipulate metal. I think that you could have come up with some more interesting things. It doesn't feel lazy. I just think that it's like you could have had multiple phases, and because I agree with Sam, the fights do feel like they're over pretty quickly.
Yeah.
Especially
on like second and third playthrough.
Yeah.
So you're very, very fun.
Yeah. But I did love I loved this part of the game, and as I said, I burst out laughing. I was like, it was just from pure joy, and it was like one of those moments where this is the most I've enjoyed a game in a while. And it's not just about appreciation. It's being able to sit there and be like, I'm actually just having fun.
Yeah, and because I got this, and it felt like the first time, maybe I don't know, since like maybe like the first time with like a big AAA game I've had this since like The Last of Us.
Yeah.
I think. And I was just like sat there, and I was like so invested in the story, and having so much fun with the gameplay mechanics and leveling myself up, getting all these weapons and just exploring everything. I was like, it was just something very much pure fun.
Yeah, and someone at work was saying to me that they didn't want to buy the game because it was only 10 hours long, and
that's what Resident Evil is.
Yeah, it is because
it's
it's designed to be replayed, and it doesn't outstay its welcome, which is why I always appreciate it. But it was the same guy who complained that Valhalla was just too long, because he likes to get value for money. But and I sort of made the point, it's like, well, I got 100 hours out of Assassin's Creed Valhalla, and I walked away and I thought probably could have used the time better. And I didn't really enjoy any part of it. I kind of got through it because it was okay. It was a time sink. Whereas Resident Evil 8, I played, my first playthrough took me just shy of 9 hours, and I had a blast from the first second until the credits rolled.
There's not like 1 second wasted in not that, but like there's not like a minute wasted in that game.
No. And even when you're not like progressing the story, you're progressing your own like abilities and upgrades and finding treasures and the exploration and everything. Like, I was just like stunned by it. I was stunned. The first night I played it, I was so impressed with what I was playing. It just visually, like the gameplay felt so refined, and I was just like, this is fantastic. Now, after this point in the story, Heisenberg, goes down, has his line about the boulder punching asshole. And then suddenly you get your heart ripped out.
Yeah, that got me, Colin. I wasn't expecting Ethan to die like that.
Yeah, and I thought, oh shit. I didn't. Part of me was like, I reckon he's not dead, because I feel like that's not really a send off. But I wouldn't be surprised right now if we're about to start playing this Chris or something. And what do you know? You start playing this Chris. And I actually, on subsequent playthroughs, it's not quite the spectacle it is on the first time through. But on the first time through, it feels fucking awesome.
Yeah, because you get like these big automatic weapons, and you have so much ammunition, and you're just like fucking just plowing down all
annihilating everything.
Yeah.
And then obviously you get to the big center of the mold and you start shooting lasers from the sky at it and all this other stuff. It's a really, really good sequence.
It's a lot of fun.
Sam, what did you think of this part?
Yeah, it's where the game just goes, right, you've had your fun for like limited, like, well, not limited, but like less ammo, and this is where you just don't need to worry about it. You just go.
Yeah. I at this point I wasn't sure where the story was going to go, because I was starting to get a bit worried that like, all that work I put into Ethan's like build, like not build, I'm not tweaking a build, but into like all of his weapons and shit is like, it's gone because I'm just going to get to play as Chris for the finale of the game. But obviously you go through the castle, you have that fight with the really over armored brother of the other werewolf dude. Which I didn't realize until I looked at the concept art, because they're called different things, and they say in the concept art, they say in the concept art they're brothers who both got mutated at different points, and the guy at the end has been mutated for like decades and hiding underneath the cave kind of thing, whereas his brother has just recently been whatever.
That's sad.
and then you go through, you find the weird baby-looking thing, which is in all of the like marketing and all of the stuff. And then you go into the little workshop room, Miranda's workshop, and I actually really thought this was cool. Some people like that I was watching were like, "This is awful. It doesn't tie into Resi well enough." And it's just like, what the fuck? They basically implied that this village is like the cause of the entire franchise.
Yeah, it's fun. Like, it's not like it's silly and like. Kind of
oh yeah, definitely.
No, but like, I'm not going to Resident Evil. If I go to Resident Evil to get silly stuff.
Yeah, you want it to be kind of goofy.
Yeah, that's what I get.
And because people were like, "Oh yeah, but this one's too goofy," whereas 7 was just really serious. I was like, 7 was really serious? Do you remember the part where Jack Baker is springing around a pair of chainsaw scissors and screaming Evil Dead
And you have a
quotes?
chainsaw fight with
And that wasn't goofy. Like,
And you have Lucas making you explode a birthday cake.
yeah. Or you're shooting some woman's like bug-ridden vagina. Like, I don't know. But obviously you have that point and you realize that Oswald Spencer was a student of Miranda.
Yeah.
And he took the image from the village to go and found Umbrella and all the rest of it. And I just thought that was a really cool concept because there's a part early on where someone says, "Oh, could this have anything to do with that guy who was here all those years ago?" And I thought,
like the butcher's shop, isn't it?
Yeah,
The butcher's area.
I thought it was Wesker.
All right.
I thought it was going to be Wesker, and it was going to be
Wesker
like.
came back, that'd be so good. That'd be so stupid. I would have loved that.
I thought it was going to be Wesker, and it was like, oh shit, he came from here, and that's like why he got superpowers and stuff. I don't know, but I thought, is that going to be Wesker? But it's still a cool thing that it was Spencer, and it's kind of like implying that this village is like the catalyst for the entire franchise in many ways. But that's cool. It makes zero sense, and it's definitely a retcon. But you find Mia's all good and well, and then you find out one of the dumbest twists in the game is that Ethan was a mold dude the entire time.
This felt like it's I expect Resident Evil to be stupid or whatever, but like it did feel a bit kind of like rewriting 7.
Yeah, but it did. But then I kept thinking about it, and it was like, well, this almost feels like they've planned it since 7.
Yeah.
Because so apparently 8 was in development 7 months before 7 came out. And you think back to 7 about the fact that his hand reattaches. You think back to the fact that like if you get your leg cut off in that room, he gives you a thing to reattach it because he knows it's going to work. And there's small signs there that they sort of were hinting at a bigger thing.
I still feel like they could have done it a bit differently.
They could have,
saying it was like, instead of saying it was just like a mold person. I feel like they could have maybe just said like he was like, I don't know, it's just weird, just like, it just seems a bit odd to me to just say, oh, the character you're playing as the whole time has just been a big lump of bio weapons stuff.
Yeah. And he's been shooting his bio gears up inside of Mia, and it was the point in the story where the game kind of lost me a little bit, and I was like, you know what, I'm not going to think about it too much. Fine, whatever, because it's just a reason for him to come back one more time. But I do think it's one of the weirdest parts. But that said, it's like maybe they did realize, and that's why they put small winks to it in 7 but couldn't really flesh it out, because by the looks of it they've definitely planned this as some sort of trilogy now. Like it seems like they've got it like scoped out pretty well of what they're planning to do with this, and it's coming together as the Mold trilogy, which is not like the most marketable thing, but and then it's the time for the final fight with Miranda, and I quite like the moment just before that fight where you go to the Duke one last time and he says, "Be well," and he's like, "Thanks," and he's like, "I'm gonna go kill some shit." The fight with Miranda is, it's a human fight, basically. It's a one-on-one enemy fight, and it's fine. It's fine.
It's good, but I don't think it's anything that special.
No, it doesn't quite have the spectacle, but the thing I liked about it is, in 7, the final boss is basically just shooting at a face.
Yeah.
Whereas this actually had some gameplay to it, and it is actually a final boss fight. I just don't think Miranda was that interesting a character because she's also not in the game that much.
No, she only really turns up towards the beginning and then turns up again at the end, really.
Yeah. And I feel like you could have also almost made it more rewarding if it was revealed she was some, I don't know, if she was like the woman from Resi 5 that Wesker like was hanging out with, or I don't know, something dumb like that, just to tie it back in and be like, oh shit, it's that dude. I don't know, but
rather than just some evil overlord, like
yeah,
that's just been there the whole time or whatever.
Well, I thought it was going to be something like it was actually Mia until the end of the game. I thought it was like, oh, Mia is actually running up, but yeah, basically, I think Miranda as a final boss kind of under delivers a little bit because she's not. The boss itself isn't spectacular, and also it's like there isn't enough characterization there to make you feel anything while you're doing it. But it's a fine boss, and she does some transformations, and then the story's over. And obviously, Ethan dies, blows himself up.
And you don't see his face at all.
In a really weird cutscene.
Yeah.
They should have just kept it in first person. It would have worked.
Yeah.
But what they do instead is they just keep showing you different angles where you can't see Ethan's face.
He's just like crouched down like that.
And it's just really weird. It's like, what the fuck is happening? But it's also like, I don't know why they're trying that hard to hide it. Like, people know that there's a model of Ethan's face. It exists. He looks just like a normal dude, but there is a model.
They could have just shown his normal face, like in promotional materials, or like in like a photograph or something.
It's not that deep, But I think you could have just had that whole sequence be first person, and then suddenly it works a bit better. But Ethan is supposedly dead now. Supposedly, he's dead. Yes, I think it makes sense. And if you think back to the first trailer they did, the PS5 showcase, they were like, this is the end of his story, sort of thing. And lots of people thought that was going to be the end of Chris's story. I thought it was going to be the end. I was always like guaranteed. I thought Chris is going to die or something's going to happen with Chris in this game.
They implied he was meant to be evil in some of the trailers.
Yeah. And I do think it's kind of weird, actually. I mean, I understand why, because there's marketability to it, but I do kind of think it's weird how heavily Chris is featured in all of the marketing. Like, is on the front of the box art, is the icon on the PlayStation. The collector's edition is a statue of Chris, and yet he's only in maybe 4 scenes.
Yeah, well, I suppose it's like a lot easier to market Chris Redfield than it is Ethan, and also like Resident Evil 5 is the best-selling game in the series.
It is, but you think about it, they didn't have that issue with 7, and they just managed to come up with interesting artwork and stuff for 7 instead. And I feel like you could have easily done the same thing with this one. I think they were probably for fans' sake they were probably banking on the fact, oh yeah, Chris is back. You want to play this one.
Although I think they probably would have sold more collector's editions if they just had a big statue of Lady D.
Yeah,
definitely.
That would have sold.
I remember when they revealed the collector's edition, and I was like, oh, it has a statue, and it was Chris just in a black coat with a gun. And I was like, I don't really care then. Like, I wasn't going to spend any money on it. But if it was something like, a statue of like all 4 of the bosses or something, or like something like a statue of like a werewolf dude, even.
Yeah.
Something like that, or the big werewolf dude, or something a bit more iconic to this game, I would have gone for it. It's just that it seemed a bit silly to have this sort of boring, dull figure of Chris.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think there were other things it could have done. I know if it was like the Lady D statue, that would have been insane.
Yeah.
That would have sold out instantly.
Especially if they made it like if they did it in like 2 pieces, and it would end up being like over a foot tall or something.
To be honest, then it would probably be worth the money, but I'm not going to spend 200 quid for a figure of Chris. I think there was so many more interesting things you could have done with that concept, and they kind of just copped out a bit. So as a whole, obviously I'm still discussing the story because we've got a little bit more to go. You get back into the helicopter, and Chris discovers that the BSAA agents, someone who Chris used to work with, I believe, in 5 and 6.
Yeah, because I think it's like because I think like the people, that Chris are with at the beginning of his bit, he's talking about he's talking with like his military people. I think those people are all human, apart from they comment on like the BSAA sending in other people or something, and I think it's
so I believe Chris and the wolf stuff is separate from Neo Umbrella from 7. Yeah, it's separate from anything else. It's like Chris's own like division.
Yeah,
and then BSAA is a company that's been featured in a lot of other games, and I'm pretty sure Chris worked for them in 5.
Yeah, Revelations. Yeah,
and then so there's this reveal. It's kind of thrown to the side.
Yeah, it just kind of turns up like, wait, what?
And it's like the BSAA agents were actually like zombies.
Yeah, because they were like bioweapons or something.
Yeah, so they were
Yeah.
sending in bioweapons. And also, I think it's weird, like, you look at the concept art and some of the other stuff, and it looks like those BSAA agents were meant to be a much bigger part of the game, or like an actual enemy to fight,
Oh,
because
right.
of how much detail is in their outfits, and also just like the fact that they've got like different combat stuff. And I don't remember seeing one in engine the entire game.
I am wondering if they may have scaled that back a bit
Yeah.
to get the game out this year.
I was
the
also
first half of the
thinking,
year.
though, they might have scaled it back because they went, you know what, we don't want to make the mistake of 5 and 6 where we're starting to put human enemy like people in. Because I
Yeah.
actually think, you know, as soon as you put enemies with guns into games like this, it kind of, I don't know, especially in 5 and 6, it kind of doesn't, it's boring. So maybe they just went, you know
Well, I
what, we
mean, it
don't-
works for 5 and 6 because those are like action games.
Yeah.
They're like full-on action, especially 6. But
But I
don't
do
think it
think,
worked.
yeah, I do think it
It
would have
wouldn't
made
really
more
work,
sense to
right?
not have firearm weapons and stuff firing back at you
Yeah.
and stuff. But yeah, I think it was weird that was sort of thrown in the side, and it's almost implied that like at one point in the development you were able to fight against them as like Chris and all this other stuff. But yes, you get this twist that the BSAA are sending in bioweapons, and Ethan's dead, and Mia's very sad, and Chris isn't very sympathetic, and then you're like, and then Chris is like, set the location for the BSAA headquarters,
Yeah.
and it ends, and you're like, oh, okay. So is the next game going to be Chris taking down some other big pharmaceutical thing going on? And you're like, okay, I can get on board with that. And then there's an end credit scene, and you're like, wait, what? And you have, something I wasn't really expecting. I was thinking maybe there would be one more bit, but there was quite a significant, it's a 3-minute sort of clip. And it's Rose, the daughter, all grown up.
Or like 15 or like a teenager.
Yeah, going to Ethan's grave, and she sort of gets a little bit aggressive with like her bodyguard type thing, and it's clear that she's working for Chris or in some capacity being mentored by Chris, and then she drives off and it ends, and you're like,
and it's implied she's got like some kind of powers or something.
yeah, she's got like Evelyn's mold abilities.
Yeah.
So before we carry on with where that leads, I guess just as a whole package, do you guys recommend Resident Evil 8?
If you like 7, then yeah, it's like as simple as that.
I mean, I saw one review where they all talked about it, and they were like, yeah, it's a good time. And then fucking Greg Miller was like, I don't recommend it. I think if you miss this game, you wouldn't be missing out on anything. And I was like, the fuck are you talking about, bro? Like, this is like such a fun time the whole way through. It's such a great Resident Evil game. And I think it goes back to the conversation as well, and people being like, yeah, but it's not very Resident Evil. And it's like, but Resident Evil is whatever they want Resident Evil to be. You do realize at one point in this franchise, you're like fighting a meat dinosaur while like diving on the floor and shit. Like, it's whatever they decide it to be. Just because it has a name, it doesn't mean people have ownership over it. I find that like train of thought very weird. To think, well, this isn't my Resident Evil.
And also at the start of when 7 came out, they were praising it how it's reinventing it.
Yeah.
Like, so I don't really understand why the argument would be, oh, but it's not Resident Evil, when they were praising 7 for being not Resident Evil.
Yeah, lots of people are saying it's not immediately as engaging as 7 is, and I have to disagree. I think you made the point at the beginning, Harry, that like you think this one's more fun on subsequent playthroughs or easier to get into than 7 was. But I think I still prefer 7 in some ways because of how I do like how it kind of dumps you straight into the thing. You don't have any of those sections on repeat playthroughs of the like slower pace. Like it's a pretty constant game. You're constantly moving forward with it. But I do love this game a lot. Which leads me on to the point of where the fuck do we think this franchise is going?
It's kind of implied that maybe Rose will be the protagonist in the 9th mainline game, I guess. But so, like, I'm curious if they do that. I think they'll have to be more actiony.
Yeah.
Because I don't know how they can make a game where the lead character has like I don't even know what power she has, but it seems like she's still got kind of like I don't know, shoot like mold out her hand or some crap like that. But like if she can do anything like that, I don't know how they're going to make it tense or scary. So I think they're going to have to try and. So if I think they do make her the protagonist, they have to kind of make it more actiony.
I think it's almost a given that Rose is going to be the lead in the next game.
Yeah.
I am actually almost sure it won't be first person.
Yeah, kind of.
Because I think Ethan as a character was designed to be an avatar for people, And clearly they fit. I think Capcom feel like they're sort of running into in terms of characterization, they sort of run into a corner with them. And so the fact that they're already showing Rose's face, I think implies that maybe the ninth one is going to be a third person.
That'd be cool.
I think it would be really cool. It's been so long since we've had a third person new Resident Evil game, like an actually new storyline.
Yeah, besides the remake,
Yeah. And I think if she's gonna have things like mold abilities or something, I am hesitant.
Honestly, I think if they're gonna do that, they need to make it like as ridiculous as 6 and as fun as 6.
Right.
And I think they should, if they do that, but they either immediately before or immediately after, they need to release like a really survival horror one. Just so like people are like still happy with it.
What do you think? Where do you think it's going to go, Sam?
I have no clue because obviously I haven't played as much of the franchise as you guys. But it just doesn't feel right to have like a character where you have all those abilities and whatever. Like,
so the rumor is that they've always been working on these 3 games as a trilogy of sorts. And if you look at the Capcom leaks, there's a game called Biohazard Apocalypse, which is supposedly coming out at some point in this decade.
Right.
I feel like that is probably from because it was slated for 2024, and I think with COVID that's probably 2025, which is the same amount of time between 7 and 8.
Yeah.
So I could see that being it. I am not sure because apparently it's meant to be the finale to this trilogy, but also it's going to be them doing another attempt at the style of 6, where it's like this is the finale to the Resident Evil mainline franchise.
Right.
So it's not just a finale to this, but a finale to the franchise. And I think you've already started to see that with how they're linking the mold stuff in this game to Oswald Spencer, and it's sort of coming all full circle.
Yeah.
I am not sure where Ninth is going to go. I'm pretty sure Rose is going to be a playable character with mold abilities.
Maybe a bit of Chris, like just.
What I'm hoping is somehow, they kind of do a Resi 6 thing, not in the same way as Resi 6, but it's like if you're going to do a finale, you need to bring everything full circle. You need to bring people back.
I want to see Billy from Zero.
Definitely, you need to have Billy and Rebecca Chambers from Zero. You need to have Chris. You need to have Jill. You need to have Leon. You need to have Claire, and then you also need to have Rose somehow to tie it all together.
Make it as ridiculous as possible.
I'm not sure how they would do it, unless you get another sort of globe like. What is the correct term? Globe
trotting.
Globe trotting, like
I think that's it.
Event where it's like you're playing little vignettes of each like campaign at different points and stuff. Yeah. But you know what? I have no idea where it's going, but I'm here for it. Like I'm here for it. Oh my god, I like it. I'm willing to play it, and I think if it's in the RE engine anyway, it's going to be fun. They just seem to have managed to get a really good formula with these ones.
Yeah.
So I think it's going to be fun regardless. Any other thoughts about where Resident Evil 9 or the future of the franchise will go? We know they're working on a Resi 4 remake, which will come out before 9, but...
Yeah. I am hoping that they do more spin-offs. And I do hope if 9 is 4 or whatever years away, I hope there's I hope there's like a good showing of spin-offs before that comes out.
So it's meant to be the finale to the whole franchise, and then after that they don't want to do mainline. They don't want to do numbered games anymore. They just want to do spin-offs in the Resident Evil franchise.
Yeah,
I think they'll probably do that because that's what they did after 6. But I'm betting you before 2030, there's going to be an E3 where Resident Evil X is announced.
And the Resident Evil X, that's like the best title.
Resident Evil X is going to be so fucking good, and I don't even think it's going to come out this decade, but I can't wait. To cap it off, we discussed what Resi 9 is going to be. I don't think we'll see it for another few years, but I'm also still hesitant about Resi 4 remake. You and me discussed that quite heavily on the other retrospective we did about what they could and can't do with that remake. At some point, maybe we'll even get a Revelations 3.
I'd like that.
Yeah. I mean, to be fair, you could easily just call it anything else rather than Revelations, and it would still be in the same vein, but whatever. So, Harry, I asked you to put together your rankings of the mainline Resident Evil games.
I'm gonna go. Okay, I'm gonna go.
Go from bottom to top. Yeah, Sam.
Yeah.
I don't know. You haven't really played any, so you could just sort of listen if you'd like.
Okay,
You
so
just do the ranking of the 3 I've played.
Well, go on then. Do it quickly.
So I think 7's at the top, then Village, then 2.
Really? Okay. Interesting. Okay. You like Village? All right, Harry, go.
Harry, do yours, and then I'll explain mine.
Harry, go.
Okay, so mine is Resident Evil Gaiden. That's the Game Boy Color one. Then it's Resident Evil Zero. Not Zero, sorry, Survivor. Then it's Resident Evil Revelations. Then it's Resident Evil 3 Remake. Then it's Resident
Really?
Evil, yeah, then it's Resident Evil Revelations 2. Then 0, then 5. Then Code Veronica. Then 6. And then Remake. And then it's 7. Then it's 8. Then it's 4. And then it's the Remake of 2. 2 is my favorite.
Wow. So 8 is in your top 3.
Oh yeah, I guess it is. I think.
Crazy.
I'm probably wrong, but
No, but I mean, like, I kind of agree. Like, I think 8 is one of like my favorite experiences in the franchise.
yeah,
Um,
especially for a first-time playthrough. Yeah,
yeah. That's so you put 2 Remake right at the top.
yeah, that's still my favorite, I believe.
I think for a lot of people, your favorite game in most franchises is going to be the one you played first.
Yeah.
Or the one that you fell in love with first. 2, I genuinely believe, is the best Resident Evil game, like hands down. It has
It's stunning.
it has the exploration of Remake, like the original Remake and the original Resis,
Yeah.
but it has great gameplay,
So
really
playable.
good combat, fun bosses, so infinitely replayable.
Yeah,
And there's no fat on that bone. There's no weird sections where suddenly you're slowed down or anything. You're just running as fast as you possibly can. 2 is probably the single best Resident Evil game in my opinion.
The remake or the original?
Remake.
Remake.
No, we haven't played the original PS1 trilogy because we're fake fans. But yeah,
I'm still going to.
I will
going
one
to.
day.
I tried and I wasn't in the mood for it. They need to just. I'm actually think I'm just going to give them another try. I'm going to try and get a PS1 and buy the original games and just do it through that because I don't.
Cool.
Yeah, I'm going to try and do that. So Sam, explain your 3.
Well, I think Resident Evil, like you said, like the 7, that's the first one I played. I think it's just why I like it, and also it's just like so restrained. Like it doesn't need like the big set pieces or anything to be fun. And yeah,
I mean, if you already think
it.
about the amount of characters in 8 compared with 7, it's like blowing it out of the water. Like our actual speaking characters, yeah.
Because 7 has like 5 people in it.
Yeah. So why do you prefer 8 over 2?
I'm trying to think, just like whether just because I've just finished it and liked it, and I haven't played 2 for a few months.
I think there's always going to be some bias. I think what's actually helped with me though is like platinuming Resident Evil 8 has really helped me see pros and cons in it. Like playing it through 4 times allowed me not to be blinded by it, because that first playthrough I would have told you it was like a perfect Resident Evil game. Like it's because I loved every single second of it. It's just on subsequent playthroughs when you can start to see like not holes, but you can start to see the stuff you're not like loving.
I think thinking about it, I would probably put 2 above 8 once I've played 8 through again. Like just thinking about like, because while I love some sections of 8, it's just playing through some of the sections again. I'm thinking like my boring.
It's weird. One of 7's biggest strengths is, first of all, the Madhouse difficulty, which actually shakes up the whole game, which sort of was meant to be Village of Shadows in this game, but it doesn't really do the same thing.
No, it kind of like half does it.
And I was also disappointed that Village of Shadows didn't give you ink ribbons.
Yeah, also like one thing, because like ink ribbons were also like key items just go in like a separate bit. They're not in the inventory. I kind of wish like they just went to the inventory as well.
Yeah, I was just disappointed that they weren't in the game at all.
Yeah.
Actually, yeah, I think that's moving 2 above. It's just the inventory management, because that's always.
I mean, a big part of Resident Evil is inventory management, and I don't think there was much of it in 8.
There was none.
And I was annoyed that there wasn't the initial like idea of a save room, and also like there wasn't music at a lot of save rooms, and also I was actually irked that on the hardest difficulty there wasn't any ink ribbons. I was like, what the fuck is this? That's like a staple of the whole franchise. If they want to add another difficulty on top of this, I'll play it and I'll finish it. But like,
and also just the fact that like there's no box to put like the weapons you don't need anymore in. I know you can just sell them and get a bit of coin for them. Then there's no box to just put them in. Like when
they're definitely again being inspired by 4 there.
Yeah, because it's the only time where I actually had to like sell stuff to Duke is when I found the grenade launcher sort of thing, and like that was the only time like that I had to like really like shuffle stuff about like everything.
I think
simple.
7 as well had some really good rewards for finishing like challenge runs and stuff with the game. You got like speed boost, you got defense boost, you got like the massive buzzsaw. You know, there were some really funny and just like fun upgrades and stuff. And I was saying, so Biohazard, not Biohazard, Madhouse mode, I think is a really good strength of 7. And I also think that the amount of great post-launch content is such a great part of 7. It's as a whole package, there is so much great content in there. 8 sort of supplements that a little bit in this one with Mercenaries, which wasn't in 7. And I think it's a good version of Mercenaries, but I've S-ranked all of it, and I do think
kind of wish there was a bit more to Mercenaries.
Yeah.
And I do kind of wish there was a tank level for Mercenaries.
Yeah, I think or if you just make like a replayable version of the tank, just shooting normal enemies or something, like that would be a really good time. Or I think they could also add just like other bosses to Mercenaries, like throw the fish guy in randomly, like throw him like running around, throw Lady D flying around and shit. You know, just shake it up a bit more. I think could make it interesting. But I hope they will adapt on it. I hope they will like evolve it a little bit. They've got a pretty good track record, you know, because Not a Hero with Resi 7 was free DLC that they just released for the hell of it.
Yeah.
It was almost like that was originally meant to be in the game, but they needed more time to flesh it out. I don't think there's an obvious gap here, but like if they want to do story DLC or like any type of DLC, I will get it. Like, even if it's just mercenary maps, I will play it. You know, because I do quite like the Mercenaries mode. I just think there's more interesting ways that you can add some new weapons and stuff.
They should add leaderboards to Mercenaries. This order doesn't have leaderboards.
Yeah, it is a little bit odd. So I've got my rankings.
Yeah.
Right at the bottom is Resident Evil Revelations.
Okay.
Then Resident Evil 6.
Really?
Yeah. I mean, I like 6, but the way I ranked it in my head, it was like, would I rather play that or that?
Okay, all right. Fair
and
enough,
in terms of right now, do I really want to play Resident Evil 6? Not really.
Okay.
So Resident Evil Revelations is the only Resident Evil game that I played and I didn't like.
Okay.
You know how I feel about Revelations.
Yeah, I know you hate it.
I fucking hate it. I was so bored out of my mind. And I think the fact that it's 3DS as well, it doesn't lend itself to being upscaled. Resi 6, then Resident Evil 0, and then 3 Remake, because I enjoyed it for what it was. Revelations 2, Resi 5, Code Veronica, Remake 1, and this is where we get into my top 4. Resident Evil 4, Resident Evil 8, Resident Evil 2 Remake, Resident Evil 7.
Yeah, that's what I was expecting when it kind of got towards the end.
But I do think that Resi 2 is the best one. And I do like Resi 4, but I even though I've only played Resi 4 once, I was like, which one did I have more pure joy with? And they're so close. They are so close to each other. And that alone should be a testament to how good I think 8 is.
8 is excellent,
yeah. But that sort of wraps up everything I wanted to cover today. Does anybody have any hopes for other content they think they could add to Resident Evil Village?
I was thinking it'd be nice if they did like, I feel like they're probably going to do like a Lady D story DLC or something like that. I'd enjoy that. Or like something where like gets to play as her in like the 50s or 60s or something. That'd be cute. But
I think because of how popular she is as a character, they'd probably be like, shit, we need to, you know, even to the point where they might be like, let's bring her back for Resi 9. Like, they might be like, you know, we need, fuck, people love that shit.
Mm-hmm.
Sam, anything you'd like to see from additional content?
nothing off the top of my head. Like, consider just, I think once I go through more playthroughs, I'll think of more stuff.
Do you think you will do more playthroughs?
Possibly, yeah. I need to check out the Mercenaries mode.
That's a lot of fun.
It's fun. It is fun. It's not easy, but it is fun.
Yeah, because I enjoyed, like, in 2, the one where you just run around as, like, just soldier and stuff.
Or survivor.
And the tofus and stuff. I imagine it's similar to that.
Yeah, it's more, it's like score based. So you're trying to rack up like high scores and stuff, and you get rewards if you get high scores and things. So if you get double S ranks on all of the mercenary maps, which I haven't done yet, I don't know if I will, just because I think I'm slightly getting burnt out by the game. But if you get double S ranks on all of the mercenary maps, you get a lightsaber type thing, and it looks cool as hell. So that's I feel like I have to do it just because,
You can't miss out on that.
No, I can't miss out on it, but I'm also just like, I'm not going to do it now because I'm kind of like, I've done 4 playthroughs and the game hasn't even come out. It hasn't even been a week.
Yeah.
But yeah, I had a really good time with this game. And I think it's a testament that, it was a struggle for me to where do I put it in my top 4? And also just a testament that I platinumed it so quickly as well, that I naturally wanted to play it that much, and it was like, well, I'm already nearly done, let's do it.
Yeah, this is the first time in like quite a while I've played a game this much, and I'd stay glued to it. Although I finished it like 5 days ago, I'm still glued to it. I still want to go back and start play my 5th playthrough.
I kind of want to do, so there's some playthroughs I want to do. I kind of want to do a playthrough on Village of Shadows from scratch.
Yeah.
Because it looks really fucking difficult, and I feel like it would be really immersive because you are tapping into, like, you have to be really careful with ammo and all the rest of it. I also kind of wanted to do, I don't know, I do kind of want to do like silly playthroughs where I just run through with the lightsaber thing on casual and just try and do stuff like that. It's a lot of fun. I actually think one of the most fun playthroughs I had after finishing the first time was the knife only playthrough.
Yeah.
It's actually such like great fun. Just like the story becomes hilarious because I'm just imagining like Miranda like looking over the village and just seeing like Ethan running with a fucking knife, like and he's just like killing her family one by one with a fucking pocket knife. I don't know. It's fucking hilarious. But I think an easy way of doing story content with this is showing immediately what happens after the game with BSAA, or showing what Chris was up to during the story.
Also, I quite like a story DLC where you actually plays on the villagers.
That'd be cool. And it's like, I think, because they've got you could do some good close combat stuff. Give them like a pitchfork or something.
That'd be great.
End of Zoe style DLC for this one, where you're playing as a villager or something.
Yeah, and it's also really, really buff.
Yeah. He's just like or maybe it's the werewolf dude before he got mold infected.
Yeah,
and he's got that massive hammer and shit. Yes.
It was just Santa beforehand. I know he's.
Well, the other thing you could do is do Mia during the story, because you need to remember she's combat trained and like she was like an agent at some point. But I reckon for most of the story she was probably just locked in a cage.
Yeah, I don't think she did much.
Yeah, maybe it's just like it's 10 hours of her locked in a cage talking to herself. Let's do that. Do you think they actually will do additional content for this game?
I think they will do. I think they got to do something because it's sold quite well.
And
I mean,
it's already the 3rd highest selling game on PS5.
Oh, right, okay, that's quite a lot.
Yeah,
that's sold like 3 million copies in like its first.
Yeah,
week,
and it's 70% of 70% of sales from PS5.
That's a lot of sales.
That's a lot. That's pretty much that's a massive, considering the install base. Like, this game's doing well.
It shows the sort of demographic that plays PlayStation. Like, the gamers play PlayStation. Like, because
the gamers.
It's because all the people who are obsessed about like Lady D and stuff.
I'm a fucking gamer. Don't fuck with me. I haven't lost my virginity and I'm 37. A fucking gamer. Did you see the new Star Wars? It was good. Fucking gamers.
I love it.
Yeah, but you know what I mean. Like, like the demographic who play Resident Evil does fit with the PlayStation.
Yeah, definitely.
More.
I think the other thing I would have liked is if like Village of Shadows just had more going on with it. I feel like it's just a missed opportunity a lot, because what Madhouse managed to do was just it wasn't ridiculously difficult. It was just it was a step up, and it had the ink ribbons and like the weapons, there's less ammo, and it just felt like a really great experience. And they changed it up, like how the enemies worked and things. And I just remember really enjoying that experience. I just think you could have done something more with it, even if it was just like Lady D follows you through the village at one random point or something stupid. Like it just shakes up and you're like, oh shit. But I don't think it shakes it up enough to warrant like, it's not anything special. I've been watching this guy on YouTube. I'm going to shout him out. No one's going to see this anyway, but he's got like 300 viewers, and I find him incredibly interesting. He basically spent he's playing the game through on Village of Shadows on his first ever playthrough.
Right.
And he is doing it without a HUD and doing it without a cursor for the aiming. And he calls it immersion playing, and he's like, when I play Resident Evil, this is how I like to play them. And he's
how does he get with no cursor? What is he just like?
So as in, there's no like dot for the gun.
Oh, okay, no dot.
Aiming reticle.
Aiming reticle. That's what I meant. And yeah, he spent like 4 hours getting through the opening section. Because it is just absolutely insane. His name is Lion of Truth.
Okay.
He has like 39 viewers. I've just been watching it and I find it very interesting. He's clearly a massive Resident Evil fan, and he's kind of disappointed as well that save music and like the lack of ink ribbons. But it's just a really interesting playthrough. I'm not watching it like religiously, but like seeing someone play through it for the first time on Village of Shadows, and like it is tough. I do feel like the Village of Shadows thing is designed though to be played on subsequent like playthroughs and with leveled up weapons. Yeah, upgraded weapons and stuff. I mean, I don't know about you, Harry, but I played the whole way through with this infinite stake.
Yeah, I used the infinite revolver, and it like had like its moments, but like it wasn't too taxing. No.
I mean, I don't think any of it was taxing. You just had to like sort of be careful with the Heisenberg fight, and that was it. Miranda was easy as well. You just, but yeah, Resident Evil 8 is, in summary, a very, very good time. The most of a blast I've had with the game in a while, and I think an incredible Resident Evil game. I can't wait to see the next one, whatever they decide to make it. The only thing I'm disappointed about, I looked at all the concept art and the like behind the scenes footage and stuff. The Ada thing would have been awesome.
That would have been great. I would love the.
That would have been awesome. So I don't know if you saw this, Sam, but Ada from Resi 2 was meant to be in Village at one point as like dressed in like a plague doctor outfit who'd like help Ethan throughout the game with like a crossbow and shit.
Oh, okay.
Would have been awesome. Would have been awesome. And people were saying they should add more characters to Mercenaries. I'm not sure how you do it unless it was like small differences between how they played. But I think the only one they would maybe add is Chris, but it doesn't really change too much. But I think Ada in the story would have made it feel a lot more cohesive again with like Resi as a franchise. But oh well. The other thing that I sent to Harry instantly, when this game was first announced, and ever since, I kept saying to Harry, I was like, I hope there is a sword fight in the game. In the same way, because the chainsaw fight is one of my favorite parts of 7 because it's insane. But I want a sword fight because you're in a castle. It's not in the game. I looked at the concept art. There was a sword fight planned in the concept art against like some dude with like a Reaper scythe. I'm like, what the fuck? You can't take that from me.
Well, you could have had it with like the guys with the like drill arms, like sword fight with them or something.
Or the propeller dude. That would have been fucking awesome. But yeah, it was I'm disappointed about that. I want them to add the sword in. And I also, you know what, if that lightsaber thing was a giant like Excalibur or something, I'd be fucking like racing to get it, because like for some reason there's just something about this game of wanting like a sword or a chainsaw. I just wish there was an upgrade akin to like the buzzsaw in 7. There was like a unlockable that was just like a really stupid melee weapon. You kind of get the lightsaber, but it doesn't look like it's that much more powerful than the normal knife, from what I've seen. But yeah, Resident Evil 8 is a great game. It's going to be something that I replay in the future. And something that's special about these games is the fact that I've played Resident Evil 7 through so many times and finished it and platinumed it. And I played through it again just before 8 came out, and I had a blast with it. even though I knew the game inside out. And I feel like this is going to be the same for this one. In a few years, when I decide, I might want to replay Resident Evil 8, or when they add an update or something, I'm going to really have a great time with this. It's one of those rare experiences where I wish I could play it for the first time again.
I get that, yeah.
Any final thoughts on this one, gentlemen?
No, I've said a lot. I feel like I got most of my stuff out.
I've been thinking about it a lot.
Solid 6 out of 10, I'd say.
Solid, yeah. It's like a 3.
Yeah, like a low 3.
It's about as good as 10-hour Tabasco song loop, you know.
Cool.
Right, fellas.
That's been the Angry Joe Show.
That's been the Angry Joe Show. Sleep well.